with us. Are they here yet, Michelle? Or
No, they're not here yet.
okay, we're down a member too.
But you have quorum.
Oh, there's three. So we're missing Sonia and oh, at any rate, welcome to the Monday, November 30th meeting of the Albany Common Council's Public Safety Committee. We're meeting this evening to discuss or interview applicants for the Albany Community Police Review Board. For the record, committee members present are Alfredo Ballerin and Thomas Hoey, along with Council Member Conti, our staff, J.R. Pichardo, Michelle Andre, and Danielle Gillespie, along with a resident here, Mr. Solon. How you doing? Gene Solon is with us also. Mr. Robinson, also from the council, is also joined. So we got a few minutes before the first interviews at 5:45, and I just wanted to kind of talk to the existing members who are not existing members of the CPRB that are not present, which I thought they would be by now. Anyone have and actually, so the term that we're trying to fill was filled by Mr. Warren Hamilton. It expired on October 26th of this year, and so the person would be taking over, sliding into his spot, and that term would end on October 26th of 2023. We do normally allow public comment, but we don't have anyone for public comment. I believe Mr. Solon is just here to listen. So at this rate, we're joined by Councilmember Farrell also. Hello, Jenny. And so, yeah, I mean, with all the police reform, conversations that are going on both here in Albany and around the country, I mean, this is important. I think it's an important thing for us to get a good fit and a good person for the board. I know, I think at this point, Ms. Vives may be the youngest person on the board. I think it's pretty diverse at this point. When you look at the ward breakdown, at least for the applicants, we have a few from, they're kind of all over this 7th Ward. Well, there's 2 7th Ward, 2 6th Wards, and the 12th Ward applicant. I actually don't have the, Michelle, you have the current makeup of the board by ward? You have
for the current?
Yeah. No. Okay. I mean, I have the list, but I don't have the breakdown. We're also joined by committee member Sonia Frederick. Good evening, Ms. Frederick.
The chair of CPRB just entered too, so you can.
Kelly?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, ward isn't always a good indicator because wards don't really necessarily represent neighborhoods. So if you look at the 5 applicants here that we have tonight, 6, 7, and 12, hello? those, are you hearing me? Do you hear me?
Kelly, can you hear us?
You hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, hold on.
No, I just wanted to give can you hear me? I can hear you.
I hear you.
I can hear you. I can't hear Kelly.
Okay,
How's that? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, so I was just
I
making an
can't hear any of
observation
you.
of the 5 candidates, even though you have 3 different wards. If you look at the neighborhoods, actually those from the 6th and the 7th basically are the same kind of neighborhoods, because they're all like, they come from the Hudson Park Center Square area.
Okay.
So like, as I'm saying, ward is not always a good indicator of geographic diversity or representation.
I can't hear.
I don't know if he was able to hear you.
I don't know. Anybody else hear me?
I could hear you. I think he's having audio issues on his end.
That's not my problem then. We just lost him.
Yeah, I think he's probably trying to re-enter.
Okay.
Try to find back in.
Okay, now I'm back. You guys hear me? Okay. That's never happened before. I don't know what happened, but Richard, you were saying wards aren't a good indicator of.
Yeah, wards aren't necessarily a good indicator because they don't necessarily coincide with neighborhood areas. And so as an example of the 5 candidates tonight, even though you have 3 different or 4 different or whatever, 3 different wards, 6 and 7, the 6 and 7, those neighborhoods are basically the same. They're in the Hudson Park Center Square area. So they're basically 4 of the candidates come from roughly the same area, even though you might see 2 different wards there.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
So
I just wanna,
just an observation.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Igo, also a committee member, has also joined us. We have Mr. Anani, a council member, joined us. We also have the chair of the CPRB here, Ms. Morris. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Yeah, and so kind of what I wanted to start with was, Ms. Morris, can you just kind of, give us an idea of what you're looking for in a good candidate for the board?
Well, I think that's I think it's broad, but I'll say that I think that the first thing that we look for is a community member who's interested, who's engaged in the community, and who does have a desire for better community relationships across the board. So I think that that's the one thing. You can come from from every practice that we could think of, but if you are interested in community service in a way that betters partnerships between law enforcement and the community, I think that that's the basis.
Okay, thank you.
That's in my mind.
Thank you. It's we're also joined with Ms. Vanelia, Dr. Vanelia Harden.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us and giving us your.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Yes. So with all the conversation around police reforms, and we've been talking about reforming the CPRB. Any thoughts that you two care to add? I'm trying to kill time. We got 5 minutes before our first candidate comes on, so we're just kind of free flowing here. But yeah, you guys sent us 2 letters with your suggestions in them, and we're inserting those into legislation and moving forward with that. But again, we're going into uncharted territory, so I think the new member that we add will also be key in moving forward with some of those conversations and those ideas.
I think.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Miss Agnew. No, I just
you
wanted
first,
to agree.
Go.
I just wanted to chime in to say that I agree. And the the current board that we have now, we're definitely looking forward to have more diversity of thought and membership. We have a great board right now. Um, but tonight's candidates will definitely help, hopeful that we'll have someone um, with a different lens, because we're not all meant to be on this board to think the same. It's about having a different skill set and individuals from the community, which which really drove the letter that was sent in. Our chair of the bylaws committee, he definitely spearheaded, and it was a collaboration. But more than anything, our voice is that of the community. And so it's really up to us and anybody who comes onto the board to be those voices of the community in a collaborative way. Um, so I just want to be clear about that and just say thank you again for allowing us into that discussion, because it's been a long time coming.
Okay. Ms. Morris, were you going to say anything?
Well, not, to Dr. Vanelia's point, I agree too. I think that at this point where we are right now, I think that the conversations that the board has had in the past are the conversations that all the other organizations are having now. So this is the time for us with the applicants with the folks that have applied as applicants. I think that it's good to see, because I think that people are more interested and more wanting to take part in the changes and the reforms that we need, that we all feel that are right here have always felt like we need. So we're moving toward that. So that the current applicants and the ones that are going to be on the board are the ones that are going to facilitate that if we are going to expand. So as V said, appreciate so much you all letting us be in the conversation with you. But I think that at this time, I think it's more important now more than ever for board members to understand that this is a responsibility, not just, something that it is volunteer, but it's a commitment, and it's important work. Let me just end it there.
Yes, and meaningful work. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Hamilton. I actually, way back when I was doing some mentoring with him, Mr. Hamilton is the member that's stepping off of the board right now. And I did some mentoring at Hackett Middle School with him for a while there. And I reached out to him prior to him joining the board and saying, hey, we could really use you. He stepped up and really contributed in a big way in all the conversations and discussions that bring the CPRB to where they are now. So he'll be missed, but let's look at this as passing of the torch, and we're getting some new blood and some new ideas on the board. So with that, I think we're just about at our time. Is Mr.
Kelly?
He goes
Yes.
by the moniker as Batman, and he's here.
Before
Go ahead,
we
Joe.
start, I don't know if you guys have discussed it. We used to have kind of set of questions. Each one gets something, why they want to do it, and I don't know. Remember what the other questions were we always come up with?
Yeah, we don't have the list of set of questions, but that's the same format. Kind of
Okay.
open it up, let the candidate explain why he or she wants to participate and wants to be a part of this, and then we'll go committee members first, asking questions, and then council members after that are present.
I just think we have to be consistent,
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and consistency with among the questions for each candidate also. That yes, thank you for that, Joe. So, all right, can we let Batman in?
Batman is here to save the world.
Hello, are you on, Mr. Colin Tackett? Batman, you there?
He's muted if he is.
Yeah, it looks like he's muted.
All right, I got it together.
Okay, yes, good evening.
I'm old. It took me a second, guys. Bear with me.
Okay, so thank you for your interest in wanting to be a part of the CPRB. They carry a heavy load and have a huge task based on where we are in this country and in the world today. So I appreciate you for stepping up and wanting to be a part of this. So what we're going to do is we'll give you an opportunity to kind of let us know why you're interested, kind of explain to us about yourself and tell us why you're interested on being a part of this. And then after that, we'll go around the questions from committee members, then council members. Okay, so floor's open to you, couple of minutes. And actually time frame, Michelle, we've got these spaced out 15.
Except for, I believe,
Okay.
after 6 o'clock, because we removed Kevin, there was like a space when, so the next one would be 6:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Just
so-
hold on, hold on. Is there going to be a board member here? Someone usually gives them an explanation of time frame and all that, the time they have to put it.
Yep, there are two. There are two board members. The chair is here and another member. They're in
Sorry,
the
I
room.
got in here a little late. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Okay, so go ahead, Paul.
All right. So good evening. First and foremost, thank you everybody for your time. I genuinely appreciate that. Not just for myself, just for what you guys do. You could be anywhere in the world, but you choose to be a part of this and you choose to get involved. So I appreciate that, and I genuinely respect that. For those who don't know, my name is Paul Collins Hackett. I'm born and raised in the city of Albany. I've kind of dedicated my life to helping people. So from my nonprofits to my 9-to-5, to my board memberships, to my volunteer efforts, to my work with other young people, I've really just dedicated myself to the city of Albany. And I want to do anything I can to improve quality of life, relationships, anything like that. In particular, this makes sense for me because I want to be a part of change. I want to be a part of moving things forward. I'd rather not sit on the bench and kind of watch things go by. I want to be involved in them. It also goes in conjunction with my position with the LEAD program. The idea is that, I'm not anti-cop, nobody's anti-cop, stuff like that. I have cops that I love to death. And I want to make sure that the community understands that we have a good working relationship between the department and the community itself. And I just think additional oversight, this transparency, me being able to have this position would go a long way to that, where I could kind of push for that and kind of make those things happen. So those are my goals, just to kind of increase transparency, oversight, do what I can to be a part of the process, and hopefully my efforts in conjunction with everybody else, increases trust with the community and we start to move forward in that way.
Okay, and just real quick, could you briefly, the community leadership team, can you just, for those that aren't aware of, just.
Yeah, so Squad, the LEAD program is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. And that's an effort with APD to divert arrests from nonviolent offenses, people who don't have to get arrested. We can push them into treatment or offer them treatment. It's a better option. Again, it just kind of addresses the disparity, the racial disparity in arrests, substance abuse as a public health awareness thing, those kind of things. So with that program, I'm involved with the community leadership team, which is we're part of a group of several community members who just kind of provide oversight with the LEAD program. We review arrest data. We talk to other community members about what the LEAD program is. We try to get people involved, get people aware of what the program is, that kind of thing. So it kind of goes hand in hand with those efforts.
Thank you. So with that, committee members, questions? Open, Ms. Frederick?
Hi, Paul. How are you today?
I'm better than some, worse than others. Good evening.
Good evening. Just a question for you. So If you were to step into this role, what improvements or changes would you like to see done to the CPRB?
One thing, I'm not, I guess my one thing would be communicating to the community. I feel like the CPRB has existed in various forms and iterations over the years. It's gone through changes. It's had this, that, and the third. I, as someone who's relatively active with things, haven't heard a lot about it. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on. So one of the things I want to make sure is that the community kind of knows what's going on, know where things stand, know what our efforts are, or, wins, losses, whatever, just that kind of thing. It'll have people feeling engaged, and it really, that level of transparency, I think will help repair the relationship. So that kind of thing, just bringing the community involved more into the process. So I guess that's one of the first things that I would, try and make happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Did I see your hand up, Mr. Hoey?
Yes, you do. Nice to meet you. Wanted to find out, it's a big time commitment and you are active in other things. Will you be able to put the time in that's necessary for this committee?
Yeah, absolutely. I fully believe in making time for what's important. So I juggle a lot, and that's just how my life is. And the way I do that is I manage my time. I'm insane with Post-its, and I'm insane with reminders and colorful calendar invites and stuff like that. And in that way, I'll plan for it.
Thank you.
I respect that. That's definitely a valid concern. I do wear a lot of hats, so that is a thing. But this is definitely something that's important to me.
Well, let people just say what an activist is. You're definitely an activist. You get active in different causes and stuff. So a lot of respect there for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, other committee members? Mr. Ballerin?
So thank you for taking your time to meet with us today, and thank you for what you do in our city and for your willingness to put yourself out there to volunteer on this board. But one question I had before you came on, the conversation we were having with members who are on the board currently was the different perspectives that individuals bring to the board and different viewpoints. What perspective do you think you'd be coming to the board with to share your experiences and know-how?
I think it's kind of twofold. I think the first perspective would be a very grassroots, on the ground kind of perspective from my interactions with law enforcement and that kind of thing. When I walk around, I don't really wear shirts and ties all the time. I don't dress professional. So my interactions with law enforcement are most times less formal than, they would be if I was, presented otherwise. So there's a very grassroots level kind of perspective there. And then I think on top of that, my role with the city, my previous role with the city, and all my different interactions with the police, it gives me a different relationship that I like to think that they understand I'm not like against them, and it's not, this weird thing, that it's genuinely a working relationship where we're trying to move forward. So I think having those relationships, having worked with them in different capacities, combined with my kind of grassroots on the street level thing, I think those two things make for a somewhat unique perspective.
Thank you.
Okay, you talked about the interactions with police. What is your typical, because everyone's experience with the police is different, right? Depending on where you are, who you are. What's your typical interaction with the police department here in the city look like?
Well, it's been my experience that people are people, that cops are people like anyone else. So I've met some cops that are people and they're jerks and they're mean to me for no reason. And I'm like, come on, man, why would you do that? I'm Batman. Come on, don't do that. But at the same time, I have other officers that I know and are genuinely good people. So I know that, it's not all officers are X, Y, and Z. That's simply not the case. So my perspective has been varied enough. I also worked in substance abuse for several years. So I had different interactions with law enforcement at that time. That was from a provider's perspective. So from a citizen to provider to kind of working with them collaboratively on different engagements, I've had a bunch of different ones. And what that's shown me is that there is no monolith. There is no one cops this. That really doesn't fit. You know what I mean? People are people. So that's kind of how I've come to understand it.
Thank you. So any other,
Yeah.
no committee member? You, Joe? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just to follow up to Tom Hoey's asking about your time. Are you free during the day? Because after the police do their investigation, I believe you have to go in and follow and read everything that they have, okay? And it's only, if it's still like that, 8 to 4? Is that correct?
Right, so you're reviewing the case basically at internal affairs or officer professional standards at the police station, and it has to, I don't know if Ms. Morris or Dr. Hart, you can speak to this. I don't know about making arrangements or off schedule
I don't know
hours,
how that worked out.
how that works.
They do have specific hours. I think it's about 8:30 to 4:30, something in that range. And so what we usually do is we contact the lieutenant prior to wanting to, in order, excuse me, to set up the appointment. We call up or reach out to the lieutenant, and he lets us know that the times that we requested, oops, sorry, my power just blinked. Then he gets back, they get back to us to advise that the time that we've asked for is available, or if it's not. So we kind of work together to make sure that our schedules, they work to adjust to our schedules.
That wouldn't be a problem for me at all. And
Good.
kind of like I said, I have no problem flexing my schedule around and doing different things. This is something that I genuinely want to be a part of, and I believe you make time for what you want.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conti, you look like you were.
Thank you. So I think you indicated that you really weren't that familiar or aware of the CPRB up until now, and I don't know if I heard you the right way, but I'm just wondering, what do you see as the role of the CPRB from your perspective?
Well, I've seen the CPRB. I've been to some meetings in the past, stuff like that. So I have watched what's going on and whatnot. Last time I went, and this may be some time ago, it was over at the GWU. And I know they've had their various issues over there now, but it was over there. So I have attended some meetings. You know, I'm aware of the process and what it looks like. What I meant was, I guess, in terms of the new changes or the more current initiatives or anything that's going on, those things I wasn't really aware of. You know, I know one thing that's been on a lot of people's minds is pushing for subpoena power with the CPRB and stuff like that. And what I meant was, for example, I'm not sure where the CPRB as a whole stands on that. Like, if you guys are pushing towards that, or if that's something you're like, you know what, that can wait till next year, or so I'm just not familiar with the day-to-day is really what I mean.
Yeah, it is something they want. Have you been following any of the police reform discussions locally, the police collaborative initiative?
Yes, I have been a part of those. I've tuned in on Facebook to some of them, and I've been a part of some other discussions, some WMHT stuff.
Right. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Mr.
Ready,
Anand?
guys. I was waiting all day.
All right. Well, thank you, Batman, for your interest in this position. You know, I want to thank you for your service to the city of Albany. I know you wear many hats, and formerly working with the city of Albany, I really appreciate everything that you did for the city. My question is more so on the topic of accountability, right? Over the past couple of years in the city of Albany, we have witnessed, instance where, people have looked at law enforcement as not being held accountable. You have cases like Dante Ivey. You have cases like Elazar Williams. And then you have another case just more recently of Officer Humpt, who said that African Americans are the worst race here in the city of Albany, or just in general. My question is, in light of the developments these past several months, is there anything that you think the Common Council can do to enable you to be better at holding law enforcement accountable? There's been several demands for police accountability. Is there anything that you believe that the common council could do to help you hold law enforcement accountable?
That's a great question. I really I appreciate that. You know, that's a genuinely trying to move forward kind of question. I genuinely appreciate what the Common Council has done, especially in light of the most recent officer who said stupid things. You know, the council was really quick with that. You know, let's get this guy out of here. That's not okay. You know, and I think a tone was definitely set. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the responsiveness, how quick that was from the Common Council. I appreciate that it wasn't a middle of the road stance. You know, it was really, no, this is not okay. So in all honesty, I'd like to see that continue. You know, if we have a Common Council who is that on top of things, who is that aware, when something happens, the next day or two, there's a response and they're pushing for the right thing, bro, I'm okay with that. You know, that's really what we want. And this summer, I've seen a lot of people from the Common Council, you know, just be active, be out in the community. Musu, I've seen you doing a bunch of stuff. You're on CNN, cool guy. I respect that. But everybody's been out. Sonia, we've been side by side at a couple of events just by happenstance. So I really appreciate the council's efforts as a whole. And I think if they stay on this track of, you know, immediately accountability, you know, immediate responses, immediate transparency as to where you stand and what your efforts are going to be moving forward, then the public, we know from our elected officials, all right, they're going to hold us down. You know, they're going to hold the line. They're going to make sure that this tone is set. So as long as that continues to be consistent, I'm good, man. You know, I'll help out with CPRB. You guys hold that down and we'll save the city.
Also, my last question is, Mr. Hamilton, who was a former board member for the CPRB, in his resignation letter, he articulated something that, you know, sometimes I have some frustration with city government, is that there's no sense of urgency when it comes to anything or just in general. It's always everything could be kicked down the road, or we could do something next year, or we could do something the following year. There's no sense of urgency. I just want to let you know, if you have an idea that you believe that, you know, the council is dragging their feet or your board members is dragging their feet, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And also, how would you deal with something like that? If something that you're passionate about is moving slow. I know maybe my council colleagues think that I want everything yesterday, which that is true. How would you handle that when something that you're passionate about is moving too slow for you?
It would be two things. On the one hand, you know, my first thing would be, you know, does anybody else feel this way? Am I bugging? Am I the only one? You know, am I being overly aggressive? You know, am I being impatient? That's very possible, you know, and I kind of take toll with everybody, see how everybody felt. But if it's something I definitely felt strongly enough about, my efforts are to build, you know, so if people aren't on the same page, I find other people who are on the same page, you know, kind of coordinate resources and kind of build teams and coalitions and whatnot. And that's what I do. So, you know, if it's somebody who you guys didn't agree with, okay, cool. I'll see if maybe something else does. You know, how to get things done, the how is always my most important thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for those, Mr. Nani, those questions, and you too, Batman, for your responses. Being mindful of the time, we're at the end here. Any questions or comments for us, or there's one or two CPRB members here, but if you want to ask a question, you can. You don't have to, but you know, if you had something.
Well, not in the interest of time, I'll let everybody get on with their evening. I'll save all the annoying questions.
Ivy has a question.
Thanks, Michelle. I just wanted to thank you, Batman, for giving us your time. Most of all, thank you for your interest in the board, because I think that, as you're saying, you're out in the community and you understand that without the board being, you know, a bigger presence and taking on very important issues that we all face here, that nothing will change. So I really appreciate your interest, your expertise, and taking the time with us this evening. So before we signed off, I wanted to just let you know that how much I appreciate you stepping up, as you always do. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. And again, thank you for the interest and thank you for doing what you do. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, guys. Have a good night.
So our second Paul here.
I have a question for you, Mr. Chair. I scribed those questions. Do you want me to put the questions that you asked in the previous interview in the chat box? I summarized some of them.
Yeah, for sake of consistency. Yeah, that'll be helpful. Yeah.
Wait, so do we still get to ask the questions or would the
Yeah, you
chair
do. It's
just ask
just a
them?
reminder. No, it's, you can ask the question. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
thank
a
you.
reminder for the sake of consistency. Is our next,
I'm not seeing James yet. 1 second.
the old schedule?
Danielle, you got better questions in there than I asked.
What you were getting at, I summarized it.
No, you good. You good.
It's because Danielle is awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Stuff, I just kind of cut it.
Thank you.
Flute. Nothing yet. Do we have a phone number for Mr. Davis or?
I think Michelle may be calling him
I'm
now.
calling him right now.
Are we doing Jim Davis next?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the 6 o'clock.
So I called him. He did confirm about 3 weeks ago on the phone. He has not responded, and I also emailed him. No response. So I think it might be best to go with the next person at this point.
I think you had a different time for him, and maybe there was some confusion.
No, I'm just looking at my emails right now. It was
Yeah.
6 o'clock since
Because
November.
my list has him coming later, but
There was a Kevin at 6:15, which was removed. That was the only one that was removed.
yes.
Yeah. But James Davis, no, he was 6 o'clock.
All right.
I called him also, but
I see Farhad Iqbal Khadak in the queue. And I think he is your 6:30 if you want to move, because Kevin's a cancellation.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, I didn't get that email with questions. If we're gonna go with those questions, can you send it to me again? I apologize.
Yeah, I put him in the
It's
chat.
in the chat group. The chat group.
It's in the chat.
I
Click.
clicked off and I had to go back on my internet.
you're breaking up.
just try to remember your questions. That's it.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Katek. Is that, can you, you're muted. Can you pronounce your name for me? We can't hear you, sir. You're muted. Okay, now you're good. Hello?
Interview.
You're good now. We can hear you.
Give me 1 second, sir.
Okay, yep, no problem.
I was on job. Now I got my break. So let me go to my break room and then I answer your questions.
Okay, and we're taking you a little bit early, so take your time. No, you're doing us a favor. So,
No problem, sir.
okay.
Valerie, I just emailed it to your city email address. Do you want me to send it to the other one?
If you don't mind, I've got access to that on my phone.
Okay.
Thank you.
You send it to my email also?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Katek. Can you say your name for me?
Yes, my first name is Farhad, F-A-R-H-A-D, and my last name is Khatak, K-H-A-T, T as in Tom, T as in Tom, A-K.
Okay, thank you, sir, and thank you for your interest in being a part of the Community Police Review Board. What we're doing is we're letting candidates speak about themselves for a couple minutes, and then the council members, committee members first will ask questions. So just basically tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the CPRB.
Actually, sir, for the last 23 years in my country, I was a legal attorney. I remained as a prosecutor also, and I remained legal attorney also, and I was president of the Bar Association also. So when I came to USA, I requested, I applied for NY bar exam. So all my credential, I certified my credential to bar exam board, but they were in opinion that I should get LLM from USA. When I went to Albany Law School and asked for the fees, it was 45,900, which is beyond my capacity. So I could not be attorney at USA. So this is because I was 23 years, I was in legal profession. So this was one of the chance that I can do something legally.
Okay. Okay. All right, sir. So we'll move on and we'll let members ask questions.
Sure.
We'll open it up.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So Ms. Frederick, you want to go first?
Yes, if you want.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm very much fine. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you being interested in getting involved in the city. The first question we have for you today is, if you were to step into this role, what improvements or changes would you like to see done to the CPRB?
Actually, I have studied a little about the CPR, but I'm not very much convenient with the procedure, which procedure you are adopting, but I have knowledge of investigation. So the main theme is about the police and the community. What I'm feeling. So if there is something wrong or something wrong from the police department or something wrong from the community department, we are to investigate it and give a recommendation.
We lose him? Oh, there you
Yes.
go. Okay, we see you.
Oh, okay. All right.
We lost you there for a minute. Okay.
So,
Can you hear us?
yes, I'm.
All right.
So if I enter there, I can suggest which part is weak. We are to improve with the our recommendation or with the something we can do more better. There is always a place on the top. If someone says that now this is the end, there is no end.
Mhm.
Everything is to be to go to the perfect, from the perfect to the perfect, more perfect. So there is always a place we can do more.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hoey?
Hello, how you doing? Thank you, Farhad, for coming in and taking time. And speaking of time, this position, you're going to need to be free during the day between 8:30 and 4:30 if you have to do investigations. And I'm just wondering, will you be able to have that time?
Yes, sir. My duty starts in the afternoon. So there is no harm. I'm always free. For the last two years, I'm free from 8:30 to 3 p.m. So for the 1 hour or so, I can relax myself more with my manager. He is very nice person.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir, and thank you again for taking your time and putting yourself out there to be interviewed to serve on this very critical, board. So we appreciate that. We appreciate, your time and what you do. My question has to do with perspective. What perspective, what viewpoint would you bring to the board based on your experience and know-how?
Sir, this board is only to give the recommendation. What you see or we see, anyone in the board, the members see, investigate the case and what is there. So they are to give the recommendation. So I think we have nothing to decide about the fate of any police officers or the community people. We are to only to see the right path, which right path is going on.
I know we're looking to make some changes to this board and to give us some more strength to it. I guess I just wanted to follow up. My question is more about what viewpoint, what different experiences do you have that you'll be bringing to the board that we may not have on the board at this time?
Sir, actually, I have 23 years experience for the investigation. I want to do something. I want to utilize my knowledge. I want to utilize my experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Mr. Hatak, have you had any interactions with the Albany Police Department at all?
Which department, sir?
Yes, Albany Police Department. Have you had any interactions, good or bad, with them?
Sir, up till now, I have never stopped by any police officers. I have never gone to the police stations. They never gone to my home or office, anywhere. I have never met any accident. I was never issued any ticket, so I have no interaction with the police up till now.
Okay, yep, okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Kelly?
Yep.
Miss Ivy here?
Yes, she is.
I think every person should be told that comes in how many hours they would probably have to put into this a month. It's a fair question that they know that. We used to ask that in the past.
Well, what we find is that it doesn't,
Because of the different committees, et cetera.
right, it depends on how many committees you're on. It depends on what the caseload is too. But for the most part, it's a few hours a week. We meet once a month. And I wanted to thank you, Mr. Haddock, for joining us and wanting to be on the board. We're all community members that have, since we volunteer, we have other interests as well. So it's a few hours a week, and we meet once a month. Committees meet throughout the month at different times. So based on different issues that we have going on. But the main thing is that to be able to review the cases, we have to go into the Albany Police Department. So that was the question. Because it's specific hours that we have the access and that we are only able to review the information in the police department. It can't ever come out of the office. So that's our way of doing our oversight. I also wanted to say to you that, so the hours are not overwhelming unless, of course, it depends again on the caseload, the information pertaining to the case, and what other committees you're on. But what I wanted to say to you, Mr. Haddock, is that your investigation skills are probably something that would be very useful for the board, because as we've been talking about this time that we're in, the CPRB is looking to expand its duties and its tasks. So any perspective that you could bring on investigation and review would be very helpful. So I wanted to thank you for taking the time with us today. Does that work, Mr. Igo, or do we need to go more?
Thank you. I think everybody coming in should know the time required.
You're so right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Conti? You good? Okay, Mr. Anani, anything? Questions, comments?
Yes. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your interest in applying for this position. I want to echo what the CPRB chair said, as it relates to having that investigatory background. I think is really key. And, just want to, commend you for wanting to put your hat forward. My question is more so with accountability. Over the years, we've seen incidents, one with Dante Ivy, an unarmed African-American who was tased by Albany police officers. Then we have another incident, Elazar Williams, an individual who was accused of having a gun, was running away from police officers, was shot in the back, and now is paralyzed. And then more recently, we just had an incident where Albany police officer called the African-American community, huge segment of our population, the worst race. My question is, what can the Common Council do to enable you or CPRB to hold Albany police accountable?
Sir, it should be accountable. I believe so. There is always, there should always be on the top, something on the top. It should be in the chain. So every person is to be accountable and there are bad peoples also, but we cannot blame all the police department. There is bad person in the community also, but we cannot blame all the communities. So, but in my view, there must be some restriction that they should not go from their, we should distribute the powers. We are to distribute the powers among the police also, and among the department also. There should be some power distribution, but they should not cross their limit. Everyone should be in their limit. If there is, sir, if you have time, I have one real story. If you have time, it will take only 2 minutes.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. When I was law student, my professor told me that story, that one person was going on footpath on the road, and he was waving a stick like this. He was waving a stick. The other person was coming from the opposite direction, and that stick hit the nose of the other person. He just caught him there, that you have hit my nose. The person who was waving the stick, he told him that I am a citizen of this country. I can go anywhere and I can do anything what I like. The person who was injured on his nose, he told him that I accept your rights, but your rights ends where my nose starts. So when my nose starts, that begin my rights. You have intervened in my rights. So if everyone is in, we accept all rights, but if anyone exceed the rights, it will definitely damage the other rights. So there should be check and balance. I'm sorry to
No,
take
no, no problem. Okay, thank you for that, sir. So with that, if, do you have any questions for us? First of all, thank you for your interest in the position and stepping forth to be a part of this. You have any questions for us?
Sir, I have no question.
Okay.
If I get this job, it will satisfy my conscience that I'm doing something legally. Because in my country, I was attorney at law. I spent 23 years.
Okay. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
You have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
You too, sir. Okay. And our next, Michelle, our next applicant is what time?
7 o'clock for Carrie Livingston.
Oof.
7645 Pope Hall. 1 second.
Yeah, is there any way you could?
Let me check to see if he can come in a little earlier.
Okay.
So while we have some dead air, some dead time, Wednesday we have caucus, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no meetings tomorrow. All right, just want to make sure I'm,
I don't believe so.
okay, good.
We have to
Danielle.
presentation for Wednesday, so just FYI for that.
Do you mind saying that again, Michelle?
It's the APD audit, racial bias findings presentation.
Thank you.
Can I, is that, because I understand the final audit's supposed to be released on Wednesday. I just want to make sure that, do we have, I don't know if there were any changes from the one that was initially put out and the one that we might be looking at Wednesday. And can we make sure that we have the current version?
Yes, I'll be reaching back to them.
Okay.
Right, and just from speaking with Dr. Pleers, it's not any, there's some number amendment or edits, some along those lines, but nothing substantive, nothing really big between the two. No big changes, no big amendments.
Right.
I got a fast question. There's a new Zoom software when I went to log in tonight. Is that something that we should be upgrading to?
Yeah, well, personally, I take every time I log in, if I get the update message, I try to take it.
Okay.
Most of them are security updates. I mean, you're the IT guy, right?
I didn't know. I just don't want to get knocked off.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I no. You don't want to do when you need to be on. It's something that when you log out, if it prompts you, you should do it. But I wouldn't monkey around with trying to do it leading into a meeting. I tried that one time and it was a really bad meeting for me, at least. But yeah.
Joe, when do we have the law committee meeting this month? Do you remember the date?
Wednesday. I mean, not Wednesday, Thursday.
Thursday.
5:30?
Mhm.
And is the hen ordinance going to be on that?
It
Was it?
believe it is because it's on the active calendar.
Yeah.
It's on that agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question for the chair of CPRB. Ms. Ivy,
Hi,
how you doing?
good, yourself?
Good, good. I read the former board member, Mr. Hamilton's resignation letter,
Mhm.
and I was just, do you have any response to, his comments as it relates to the sense of urgency or things moving too slow for him to be on the board? Is there anything that you'd like to share?
I personally always think that we can move much faster and do things much more urgent. So I did share Warren's impatience regarding that. The thing is, and he was we did. When Warren came on the board, it was it energized us because Warren had a really good focus on about police reform and how he wanted to do good work in the community. So that was a benefit for us. I personally feel like we can always move faster, but I don't put that in the work that we're doing because we've been at this a really long time, for a long time. So I don't get to the point where I think that because we're not moving, we're not making progress. Let me just say that. So yes, I share the sense of urgency, but I don't speak on it because the work that we're doing is everyday work. So yes, I share it, just don't speak on it. And again, as I said, Mr. Hamilton was a great board member. And I'm just sorry that we couldn't keep him on the board with us, because I felt like he wanted to make change. He wanted change to go into effect. He really did. So that's my take on that.
Miss Ivy, do you mind if I chime in?
I would love you to chime in.
Thank you. So I think that aside from Warren's frustration is a frustration of the community. And one of the things that the community doesn't understand, and I will be the first to admit to say that it was something I didn't understand coming in as a board member, is that this is the change that we're able to make has a lot to do with policy. So for Common Council, I think that you would understand that perspective and lens, that policy doesn't move quickly. So if it's something that, one of the things that we could do better to help the community understand is that, for one, change does take time, and much of our role, which is varied, but a bigger role where we want to see is some policy changes. And those things have to go through several chains of commands, starting sometimes with you, the Common Council, which is how we got here. So I echo what Ms. Ivy said, that Warren was a great board member. He came in with new and fresh ideas, but most of us share that frustration about things taking far too much time. However, having been on the board now for some time, I also have to understand, now that I better understand my role and how things work, that change takes time. And so he left us with change that he was able to impact, and to pass the torch on to a new community member to pick up where he left off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so my understanding is that Mr. Lamar is present, so we'll go ahead and move forward with him. Hello, good evening, Mr. Lamar. You're muted, sir.
Here we go. Hello there.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm fine.
So, thank you very much for your interest in joining the board. They do important work. We'll just jump right into our question and answer. Just to start, just tell us about yourself and why you want to be a part of the CPRB.
Well, it happened, my interest in both this board and the Violence Prevention Task Force grew out of events this summer. I'm almost a lifelong Albanian. I'm 75 years old. I consider Albany a pretty wonderful city to be in. And as events unfolded not only in our city, but across the country this summer, I began to think, how can I be of use? How can I bring any experience that I've developed over my lifetime, both professionally and personally, to service, to some kind of public service? So that was the prompt, and I sent in the application. I mentioned my parents, both of whom were very involved in community work. My father was a minister at First Presbyterian Church for 34 years on State and Willett Street. And Richard, you knew my dad. And my late mother also was very involved in many activities, civil rights activities, working down at the port, all sorts of volunteer groups. So for me, seeing my parents model citizenship made me say, okay, perhaps I can do the same thing, even though I'm an old guy, but maybe I could be of use. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a retired teacher, I should say that. Do you want to know a little bit about that?
No. I mean, if you want to share it, we had more questions, but.
Okay. I'll just say one thing about that because all my life I was an English teacher, but the various populations I've been involved with are quite diverse. I taught for 16 years at Emma Willard, and then when I left Emma Willard, I taught for 6 years GED at Spark on 2nd Avenue. And then I taught at St. Rose, from which I retired. And during the last couple of years at St. Rose, I taught English at Greene Correctional Facility down in Greene County. And I've done some volunteer work with Montessori School and also with the Salvation Army after school program for little kids. And then for the last 41 years, I've run and conducted a choral group of senior citizens in Watervliet. So in other words, I think I have connected with various populations, all different ages. So that's a little bit more about me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, sir.
Sure.
Ms. Frederick?
Hi, Paul. Thank you for coming today and thank you for sharing your experience and just having interest in serving your community.
Yeah.
That's definitely a big step and it's greatly appreciated by everyone here. Just a question. As you know, the CPRB today, what changes or modifications would you like to see made if you were to step into this role to better enhance the process?
Well, can I ask a question? How large is the board? Is this?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Lamar. My name's Ivy Morris. I'm the current chair of the CPRB. Thank you. Hi, thank you for joining us. The board is made up of 9 volunteers that are residents of the city of Albany. And 4 are appointed by the mayor, 5 are appointed by the common council. And we serve two-year terms. I think there were some 3-year terms. They fluctuate, but it's basically a 9-member board.
Well, so back to Ms. Frederick's question, there's a certain lack of awareness on my part of the ins and outs of the relationship between the police and the Albany community, except what I read in the newspaper. So that's kind of where I would have to start, that I would say I know about the tensions, I know about the violence in Albany that has probably prompted responses that may be terribly over the top. I think we're a community that has crises the way many communities do at this point. Tonight, I was listening to the news about what's going on in France and the relationship of the police to Parisians. And the government has now had to rewrite their protocols for interactions between police and citizens. So I guess I would say I don't bring any expertise. I believe I'm a listener. I believe I'm able to talk with people who are interested in the same kinds of problem solving. And given information, and I think I'd be able to express myself clearly and come to consensus, if consensus is what we're trying to do as a 9-person board.
Thank you, Paul.
Mr. Hoey?
Hi, Paul. Thank you again for coming and spending time with us tonight.
Sure.
And I'm going to talk about time because time is the most valuable asset any of us have. This position on this board will take time, and I know you said you're retired, so you probably do have some time. But during the time that's going to be needed is during the day between 8:30 and 4:30, if there's investigations that are going to be conducted. So I just wanted to, how do you feel you can balance, your time?
Well, will the investigations be in person, or will they be Zoom investigations and discussions, or a combination? A little hybrid.
I'll have to refer to Ivy on that one. Ivy.
Okay.
Sure. Currently, we're virtual. We've been virtual since I think around March, but traditionally we held public meetings in a specific location. Sometimes on Henry Johnson Boulevard, sometimes at the Center for Law and Justice. So we would move around when we had our in-person meetings. We have one monthly in-person meeting that has now gone virtual, and we are currently doing that. Committee meetings are also virtual currently. And I'm sorry.
Sure,
You go
no, no, they're already on the calendar. In other words, there's a way to know ahead of time, but there may be some impromptu get-togethers.
But what happens is we always notify everyone about, you know, what is on our agenda. So everyone gets an email and is kept up to date. We are in the process of kind of, we're going through a change. So there are some things that will be different when you come, we'll be moving into different spaces when you come on. But it's a time commitment of a couple of hours a month. We meet, as I said, one monthly meeting where we review cases.
Sure.
If you are assigned a case, you will be asked to go to APD, to the headquarters, and review the materials of the specific case for you to review at the monthly meeting. And that would be between the hours of 8 to 4. You cannot take any information out of the Albany Police Department. So you would review all materials pertaining to your case in-house.
So the review board then is focused specifically on, is it complaints against the police department?
It is complaints that are filed based on interactions with the Albany Police Department.
And then this board recommends, but has no particular authority?
We recommend. We are an oversight board. We do recommend. We are in the process through where we find ourselves now, as you mentioned, in this time of crisis and I want to say upheaval. We find that we are, with the help of the Common Council, we are going to extend our legislation, and our hope is that we will have a larger role. We will have access to other things that we do not have access to now. So that's what you have to look forward to as a member of the board. You know, more responsibility, spending more time, and addressing more issues, as in maybe more disciplinary, getting more in the arena of discipline, which we do not do now. We make recommendations and we follow up on those.
And the recommendations are made to the Common Council, or they're
correct?
Okay.
And as well as to the chief.
And to the chief. Okay. And to the mayor?
And to the mayor.
Okay, right. Well, going back to availability, yes, I am retired. I have some teaching online that I do through the Albany Public Library system. That's usually in the evening. And at the one time I do teach on Monday afternoons is finessable if something comes up and I have to be available then. But the idea of having these kind of Zoom meetings, which is our way of life, yes, I can do that. Sure.
Thank you, Paul.
Would you mention how many things you have right now? Outreach, et cetera, and
Joe, I didn't understand.
Memberships on all different committees that you might be interested in?
I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't hear you.
This is for Ivy. I'd like Ivy to explain to you, there are different committees that the board has.
Okay.
Okay, so as we were mentioning, there is the commitment to the monthly meeting.
Yeah.
There are also committees. We have a mediation committee, we have a bylaws committee, we have an outreach committee. So and I think I'm missing one. And when it comes to me, I'll
Liaison committee.
Say that, Vanelia?
The police liaison, and at any time, I'm willing to back you up. Just let me know, okay?
Thank you. So that was Vanelia. Dr. Harden, she's our secretary on the board. So yes, we have your interest, what you're interested in. If you would like to be on all committees, you could do so. If you choose one or two, those meetings happen throughout the month and they are set up at different times, but they are also announced a few days prior.
Sure. Well, I'm not frankly familiar with them or what their responsibilities are.
Let me just say this.
Yes.
It takes some time to kind of acclimate.
Right.
Because I was told that at my first meeting, I kind of looked like a deer in the headlights because I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So once you're in place and once you go through you go through the orientation and you sit down with other members and with the council, it'll be more familiar, but there's a process. You will also, I should say this too, then I did not say it prior, but I'll try to remember to do so with the other applicant, is that you being on the board also will enable you to sit in on the Albany, hopefully in the future, into the Albany Police Academy, Citizens Police Academy. That's a requirement. So again, they're virtual. We have some members going through that now. So whenever that starts up again, that is also a requirement for a board member. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that to others.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Joe, did you were asking the question about what committees?
Yes.
No, Mr. Igo just wanted her to make
I'm
you.
sorry, I got knocked off.
Okay.
Unstable internet, whatever.
Okay.
Well, I have one question to ask you. Was your father Reverend Lamar that lived up on South Pine Avenue?
Yes, he was.
And
that's where.
That's brother Jamie?
Say that again.
You had a brother Jamie?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I have a younger sister, Margaret, who taught at Hackett for 28 years.
Your father was a well-respected man.
Yes, he died 2 years ago at 96. He was a wonderful father and a wonderful citizen. So
Yes,
thank you,
yes,
Joe.
he
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for, again, we're thanking everybody. I think we're very lucky as a city to have so many residents that are willing to put themselves out there and go through this process to be on a voluntary board. So it tells us, the quality of the city that we have and the residents that we have. So thank you for being here. I also want to take a moment and thank Ms. Morris, because I think she's teaching us a little bit more about the inner workings of the board, which is, I think, good for us to hear. So thank you for that. My question is, the board is made up of 9 members, as you're aware.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we have a diverse body that has different perspectives that they can bring to the table. So what perspective, what viewpoint will you be bringing to the board based on your experience and know-how?
Mr. Ballerin, I think a perspective that I have, despite the fact that I looked like someone in the mainstream, and I am certainly, I'm an old Caucasian male. I also happen to be gay. I live with my husband in Albany, my husband of 21 years in Albany. So I bring a little outsider perspective to some things, even as I'm an insider in probably many other ways. I'm also acutely aware, and I respect and enjoy and feel educated by, even at my age, the wonderful diversity of this city. And I think that I can only respect what other communities have to offer, and to say that I want to learn from other communities and other people's experiences. I teach a memoir class, and the memoir class is most instructive to me because people write about their lives, and their lives are not my life. So I have a chance and the privilege to hear about how other people have accomplished their time. And so I try to keep my ear to the ground and my eyes open about what other people are all about themselves.
Okay, Mr. Conti. Are you done, Mr. Ballerin? My apologies.
No, I was gonna say you're also very humble because you also have an Ivy League education that you haven't even brought up yet.
Well,
thank you. And thank you for, and again, thank you for putting yourself here.
Sure.
Hey, Mr. Conti?
Great, thanks. Thank you, Paul. And I do remember your father very well, very well respected, good man. And I remember him from his involvement in advocating for the human rights ordinance back in the 80s, and we were doing that fight. So
That's right.
I want to, have you been following the police reform discussions or process that's been going on?
I can't say that I have, Richard.
Okay.
Not particularly, no.
Do you have any perspectives on what might need to be done to better relations, to deal with some of the issues, some of the friction in the community?
Well, police reform, there are two things that come quickly to mind, and that is one notion that police perhaps are being asked to or required to do the kinds of interaction with the community that perhaps other agencies should be asked to do, that the training of police might not be as comprehensive as a community needs it to be. And so many times we look at a recent killing of a man with mental illness, and do we need more people on the ground who are less interested in law enforcement and more interested in human interaction and have the skills to bring that about. So I think where we are with respect to what police are being asked to do and what might instinctively be the things that they would do, maybe we need a greater group of people to be involved with community support, community protection, and those two things. So that's one thing. And this goes, and if I could mention one incident, but this is not painting, I don't think, with a wide brush. Years ago, there was an incident at the corner of State and Lark, and a young man named David Scaringe was killed by police bullets. And I happened to be there that very night. I was there on the corner when the whole thing was going down. And I remember coming away and talking to Mark about it later, saying, I have no idea why the police gave chase, number one, on New Year's Eve through Center Square, and number two, to a car that was fleeing for no deadly reason, and then whipped out their guns and fired that night. And for me, the idea of police pursuit and all of that having to do with judgment was something that I thought about. And occasionally I think about that when I see episodes like that occurring. So, and that's again, a one-off kind of experience, and perhaps not enough to go on, but I think the relationship between police and the community they're supposed to serve and protect, it always needs to have a good discussion about it.
And I remember that incident well, because it happened just around the corner from me.
Yeah.
Have you had any necessarily positive or negative interactions with the police personally?
I think they've generally been kind of neutral. I don't fear police. I appreciate police. So yeah, I think it's been kind of neutral, except for an episode like that where I wondered about judgment. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Mr. Nani.
Thank you, Ms. Lamar, for your interest in serving on the CPRB. Just looking at your resume and having that education background, I always think that it's important if we had more educators in elected positions or even in government, this country would be moving in the right direction. So I just want to say thank you for putting your interest in the CPRB. I have a list of questions, and my first one is more so, in light of all the incidents that's been happening in the city of Albany over the past couple of years as relates to Dante Ivy, an African-American who was tased to death by Albany police.
Yeah.
Elazar Williams, he was accused of having a gun, running away from Albany police, was shot in the back and is now paralyzed for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And then more recently, there was a police officer who said that African Americans are the worst race
Yes.
in the world. There's been calls for police accountability. And some of these cases has been settlements. There hasn't been any type of accountability in my eyes. And the community also feels that same way. What can the Common Council do to enable you or the CPRB to hold the Albany Police Department accountable?
Well, I guess I would have to wonder about the relationship between the police union and any kind of, and the Common Council. In other words, I read an article in yesterday's paper about a policeman not in Albany, but who had been involved with a couple of women, and a whole sequence of events that seemed to suggest that he was not going to be relieved of his duty. He applied to 4 other districts, including Albany, to be a policeman after he was dismissed from, and it escapes me which community it was. So the point is, I think there has to be some kind of connection between what, let's say, the police union does and the Common Council, and how seriously law enforcement takes the violence against citizens and the irresponsibility of professionals in trying to do their duty. I don't know, in other words, what kind of legal matters can come forward to address these policemen who are irresponsible, and how they can be removed from a job where they're supposed to be protecting and serving with a better judgment.
All right. My next question, is more so I've been thinking about lately. In 1963, Martin Luther King gave a speech. He talked about March on Washington. He talked about the fierce urgency of now. And lately, I've been thinking about that as a Common Council member. What can you do to improve a sense of urgency with, whether it's policy or even with, police reforms? Is there anything that you believe, for example, if you're passionate about something that's moving too slow, what are some of the things that actions or course that you would take to make sure that it gets done?
Well, I don't know about doing anything by myself. I guess I would imagine that a 9-member group would have to get together and brainstorm particular issues, cases that have been brought forward to say, what is the most expeditious way to resolve this? And so I guess I consider myself someone who would be cooperative, someone who would be attentive. And I don't know that I could answer this in an abstract way without being presented something specific. May I say one thing, however? I've spent all my life as a teacher, so my job has basically been to work with young people, elementary school kids most recently, and then before that, of course, college kids. And what I try to hold up to them are all the principles of diversity, community, our connection to each other, our common humanity. And in the sense that my classroom has always been about that, I think I would bring those same values and concerns to any group, whether it's a group of adults trying to solve a problem or a group of little kids. So I'm someone, I think, Mr. Anani, who would listen and give my best opinion and then try to come to consensus about how to solve a particular problem.
All right, yeah, and just a follow up, more so as relates to dealing with the kids. When you think about just your role as an educator, or just our kids hearing a police officer say African Americans are the worst race. How would you explain that to just Albany kids to have trust for Albany police? How would you handle something like that, or just deal with it? Or what was that advice that you would give to our youth?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's such an extreme and violent comment on the part of an adult that a child would hear. I don't think I could wing it, but I would develop something by way of, and going back to the notion of education, I would develop something by way of a lesson to repudiate that kind of judgment, that kind of comment. And that would take some time. I mean, in the immediate moment, I would say, what I would say to anybody is, how can anybody talk this way? How can anybody believe this way? And how can anybody wear a uniform and try to serve and protect a community as diverse as Albany's? But in the long run, I would have to say, okay, I haven't encountered that before, and I'd have to figure out a way to engage the kids to talk about that particular issue, and that level of disrespect and violence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lamar. With that rounds out our questions. Thank you for your interest in joining the Community Police Review Board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, so we have our Mr. Davis in the queue, but we also have Carrie Livingston who's scheduled for 7 p.m. So
You want to admit Mr. Livingston in now, and then we'll message Davis to let him know that after this.
yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Just to be fair, since we missed his time. Hello, good evening, Miss Livingston. You're muted. Still.
There we go.
Okay, yes, now you're not. Okay, so we'll just get right into our questioning. But thank you for your interest in the CPRB in serving. So we need good people. So just tell us about yourself and why you want to serve on the CPRB.
Well, I live here in Albany, and I've been part of the community for over 20 years. And so I'm invested in the community. But I was also a correctional officer back 20 years ago. And so I know the entire system. And I worked for TASK, Treatment Alternatives for Safer Communities. I'm a clinician now, so I work with officers that are mandated to me for treatment. And so I feel like it's important for us to help the officers like through mental health treatment, trauma treatment, before they hurt people or themselves, because suicide is very high in law enforcement.
Okay.
And I have 2 sons in the community, and I worry about their safety.
Okay, thank you for that, ma'am. Ms. Frederick.
Hi, Ms. Livingston. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for expressing interest in this role. It's really says a lot about people who come out and want to join a board and give back the service. So thank you for doing that. My question for you is, are there any ideas you have for recommended changes or improvements to the CPRB as it currently stands to better enhance the overall program and the processes?
I definitely feel like there should be treatment recommendations for officers that come to this table because of an offense, alleged offense. Because I worked as a offender rehabilitation coordinator within the prison system, and people were mandated to treatment. And so I printed out the review board quarterly reports. And so I've read all of the material. And that's one thing that I feel is missing.
Thank you. Appreciate that answer.
Okay, and actually, who's next? Mr. Hoey?
Yes, thank you for coming. Now, this position will take up time, and you know, some of the time is between 8 and 4 to do reviews. You know, how do you look as far as, you know, being involved in other things? Will you be able to put the time into this position that's required?
Absolutely. I mean, I have weekends and I can read this after work. And I'm also like, I went to school for forensic mental health, so I understand like the legal paperwork. So it's not difficult to understand, to comprehend. So.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
and so what I would say is, while we're at this point, like the last time, Ms. Morris, you care to jump in and kind of explain how the CPRB works to Ms. Livingston?
Sure.
And also the question about the offender treatments, I'd like to have that answered. Has that ever been on your plate as an option, Ms. Morris? But you can answer that at the end. Just can you explain the
Okay.
CPRB to her?
All right. First of all, I want to thank you for your interest in the board. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Livingston. The CPRB is made up of 9 members. They're all volunteers and they all live in the city of Albany. They come from different practices. Some come from, you know, some are teachers. We have teachers, we have a pastor, we have activists. So it's several practices are involved, and we're looking for more diverse thought in the board. And because of the things that are happening now as far as police reform and the repeal of 50A, what we do as a board, again, 9-member board, 5 members are appointed by the Common Council, 4 are appointed by the mayor. We meet on a monthly basis. Before the pandemic, we met in public spaces once a month. Since March, we have been doing all of our meetings virtually. So it's a monthly meeting. If you are assigned a case, you will be asked to go to Albany Police Department headquarters to review the materials of your case. You would go through all the things involved with that case, but you would not be able to take anything out of the police department, which you probably already know that. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that would be, so the time commitment would be several hours a week. You would also have an ability to be on other committees, which also meet throughout the month. We have a bylaws committee, a mediation committee, the police liaison committee, outreach committee, and what we'd like to do, what we've been trying to do over the years is to expand our footprint. So, and we are in the midst of getting legislation to expand our footprint, and for us to be more of a part of these conversations of reform and reimagining that are happening.
Okay. Thank you for, and also, you
Yes,
mentioned.
there was something else.
Right, no, but I won't worry about that, but Ms. Livingston, you had mentioned reviewing the materials late night or when you got a chance to. The materials can't leave the Albany Police Department because they're evidence. So you would have to find the time between. Okay, that was my point in that.
And just to add to that, what we found is that if we make requests, we call into the department and say, I have a case such and such, and I'd like to come in. What we're then advised is when is a good time to come, and we usually, whatever time we say we'd like to come in, the APD will accommodate us if you have to come in a little bit early, or, you know, but it is traditionally between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30 weekdays.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ballerin?
Thank you, and thank you again. As other members have expressed, we are very appreciative that we have so many talented individuals that are interested in volunteering for this board. My question's a simple one, and you kind of already tapped into it a bit, but if you can go in a little bit more into how your perspective, how your background, how your viewpoint would be used as an asset for this board.
Well, I have worked as in just different places, law enforcement or clinician or foster care. So like I've seen the system and where it's broken. And so I feel like I have a lot of experience.
Thank you.
Kelly? Hi,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Igo.
Okay. Ms. Livingston, I'm just looking at your resume and talking about time. I'm just looking at, I don't know, going from the bottom to the top on you spent 7 months one place, 6 months another 6 months, 4 months someplace else. It looks like you've been in this position for a year, but there's a lot of places that seems like you're short-term staying, and I'm looking for someone that's going to serve out at least their term on the board. Is there any, are you in search of something that you haven't found yet, that you keep changing these jobs so quickly?
No, so now I live by myself. My sons are out of the house, so I have time for myself. And so I'm able to continue in my education. So I'm here to stay. The reason I was working for Department of Corrections, and then I was accepted into the Peace Corps. So then I left and I went to Africa, and then COVID hit and security issues. And so then I was evacuated and I came back.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to be in Malawi right now, but
Well,
things have changed.
When I heard the 20-year resident involvement, and I see all these other places.
Right.
2013,
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few. So
right. And in order to see the whole entire system, it was, I feel, important to work in all aspects of the system.
I agree. I think there's great experiences you had, but at this point in time, we need someone that's going to stay in the position for fulfill their term. I would like to see. Thank you, and thank you for looking into this.
Okay, Richard, Mr. Conti.
Thank you. So have you been following any of the police reform discussions, and do you have any perspectives on what ideas in terms of what needs to be done to improve relations between the community and the police?
Continued conversations is huge. Having somebody that can maneuver back and forth to facilitate that conversation.
Thank you.
You good, Mr. Conti?
Yeah.
Mr. Anani.
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your interest in wanting to serve on the CPRB. My first question is, what can the Common Council do to enable CPRB, or even, to assist you to hold the Albany Police Department accountable?
How can Albany Common Council help me?
Yeah, or just the CPRB to hold the Albany Police Department accountable.
Well, it's really important to have the community kind of overseeing what's going on in the police department. And so that's why this board is very important. Are you talking about this board or personally?
Oh, just in general, just with this board, very too often I hear, you know, we want subpoena powers from the board. There's other requests that the board has. Is there something that you believe that the County Council could do to strengthen the CPRB to hold law enforcement accountable?
I feel like they're doing a really good job right now.
All right, thank you. And my next question is more so, you know, as it relates to the sense of urgency. Since being elected, very too often I feel like, you know, most of the important issues are usually kicked down the road, or individuals sometimes in government don't want to face, have the tough and hard conversations. Is there an instance where you could share where there was something that you were really passionate about, but it was moving really slow? How did you handle it?
I worked on the grievance board for Department of Corrections. And that process sometimes I felt was not moving quick enough, getting the information together, because somebody would be in the box, solitary confinement. And so in that case, I was pushing things to move quicker so that we could come to a decision.
Thank you so much. And just lastly, you know, you talk about, you know, law enforcement dealing with like individuals with mental health. You know, that's something that I think law enforcement and the community and government could all agree on. I've heard several instances where police said they don't want to deal with the homeless population, they don't want to deal with individuals with mental health. So I believe that, you know, with the reimagining of the police department, they will have some resources dedicated to social workers and individuals who deal with individuals with mental health. So I think it's important that you brought that up. And I think that that's the direction that we are moving on. So I just want to thank you so much for your volunteer into this position, your interest into this position.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay, yes, Ms. Livingston, thank you for being here. I just had a question about interactions with APD. Have you ever interacted with them in any circumstance?
All the time.
What's that look like? And what's
so it's definitely questions. I walk around a lot in Albany, and so I have constant conversations. Modern Love was filmed on my street here, and so I spent hours with Lieutenant Flack bantering back and forth, asking questions. And that's what it's all about, is having uncomfortable conversations and just trying to get viewpoints on both sides.
okay? All right. Okay, so with that, that ends our questioning, unless someone's got a hand up somewhere I didn't see or what have you. I'd like to thank you for participating and being interested in joining the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, be safe. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just we have one last applicant. Michelle, will you let him in? How you doing, Mr. Davis? Oh, he's not connected yet. Can you hear me, Mr. Davis? I guess not. The audio's not there yet. Okay, you're in, Mr. Davis. You're just muted. Welcome. Can you hear me? You're still muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Well, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so thank you for your interest in joining the Civilian Police Review Board. I'll just jump right into our questions. So just basically tell us about yourself and why you want to serve on the CPRB.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me this evening. I'm gonna start by I'm a longtime resident here in the city of Albany. Born and raised here. I see a lot of changes here. I used to work for the Albany City School District. I'm a youth advocate, community activist, and I take a lot of pride in making Albany great again. One of the reasons why I would like to help in serving on the police community board is that I have a lot of insight and a lot of things that I can offer to the group, and working together as a team to make these sustainable changes here in the city of Albany, as being a collective to help bring insight and to make those changes. I think is well needed. I think the city needs someone who's young, possesses a little tenacity, and understand jurisprudence. I was a criminal law major in college, also majored in sociology. So these dynamics are I'm very cognitive of, and I get.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. Ms. Frederick?
Hi, Mr. Davis. Thank you for being here today and expressing your interest in the board. I would definitely
Yes.
appreciate you coming out. Says a lot for you wanting to serve the community in this capacity, so appreciate it. My question for you today is, you mentioned wanting changes. What changes, if you were to step into this role, would you like the CPRB to move forward with or implement to just create improvements here in the city?
Absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, as a collective, I just want to let you guys know the changes that will be made as a collective, amongst us, as a group dealing with the relevant issues. And so some of those changes, which is the racial disparities that we have with our Albany Police Department. I'm born and raised in the city of Albany. I have a lot of friends that are police officers, and I understand the dynamic that we're in now, especially with David Holt. I work out at Albany Strength. I worked out for 8 years. So, he's Sam's, partner. So there's a lot of things going on with that dynamic, that I'm involved in, and just helping move forward and making sure that, we don't make the old mistakes. My thing is, is moving forward. We don't want to, put band-aids on things. We want to be able to address things in a way, shape, fashion, and form to where, we're not infringing or, breeding biasness or prejudice. We just want to, come up with solutions or some healthy alternatives together collectively that can reflect the changes that we want in the city of Albany. So me and being a part of the team, it would just be helping to review things in detail and us to come up with alternatives towards the particular dynamics that we're dealing with. Right now, it's blatant. We're dealing with, a lot of racial epithets, a lot of racial tension here in the city of Albany with our police department. We're dealing with a lot of things nationally that is a reflection of that. So here in the city of Albany, it's like, okay, we know we're in even nationally, like we know we're in a situation. So now the police review board, my responsibility was say, okay, as one of the reviewees to say, you know what, let's make sure that we're reviewing these things and coming up with solutions to where we're picking up Albany, we're picking up our APD, we're picking up our police department. We're not just, throwing them to the wolves, that, we're respecting and understanding, that these municipalities play a part, but we understand that some changes need to be made within the municipalities and the traditions of our city. And so, we're looking to do that in a way to where, we can create, solutions. And, that's just where, I feel I can help out at, as far as, me being a criminal law major, me understanding jurisprudence, me being well studied in these things. I think that together collectively with a board, we can come up with some healthy alternatives that could benefit some changes for the APD and help the community as well, bring that transparency.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Hoey.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Davis. Thank you for coming and giving us your time to interview. And time is so important to all of us. And as we become more active, it's hard to balance your time. So this job will require some time. Now we are doing meetings via Zoom, but there are times where you'll have to go down to police headquarters, look at the material there. They will not let you take it out. And you know, how do you feel you'll be able to balance your work schedule and your other activities with doing this important job?
Absolutely. I want to let you guys know I take a great deal of responsibility, even as being a volunteer, but sitting in the seat. So my time that I will that is dedicated will be the time that is needed for the position. You know, my schedule is not as strict as others. You know, I'm a small business owner. You know, I own my own nonprofit. So, you know, my schedule is dictated by the responsibilities, you know, to the businesses. The times that you guys need, as far as in the morning or in the afternoon or early evening time, that doesn't conflict with my schedule or anything that I have going on. So I will be able to dedicate the necessary time to effectively review these cases and come up with a healthy alternative with the board, so that we can move forward best for the city.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, sir.
So hi, Mr. Davis. My name's Ivy Morse. I'm the current chair of the CPRB. I wanted to thank you. Hi, good. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to thank you for joining us. Most of all, I wanted to thank you for your interest in the review board. I also want to thank you for the work that you do in the community. So I appreciate you. So I wanted to say that first, but I wanted to talk about time commitments since the councilman brought that up. We meet once a month. Prior to COVID, we were having our review board meetings monthly in public. Now we're having them virtually. So in addition to that, we also have committee meetings that are scheduled throughout the month. I would say that initially you'll spend a few hours a week on review board business, depending on the volume of your particular case that you're assigned to, or whatever issues the committees are working on. Our committees are bylaws committee, mediation committee, outreach committee, police liaison committee. So, okay. And all of those, as I said, those are committees where you decide how many you want to join, or if you only want to join one, that's totally up to you. But the most important thing is, as you said, is that we as volunteers in Albany, we must know the time commitment that is required of us. So I also wanted to say that the terms 9-member board, 4 appointed by the mayor, 5 appointed by the common council, couple of hours a week. Also, you will be required to attend the Albany Citizens Police Academy. And that's once a week commitment. I think it's about 6 to 12 weeks. I'm not sure, Kelly, but the more I talk about it, the more I expound on it. So that's also going to be a requirement. But the main thing is your interest and your commitment to the community, because what we'd like is to expand our powers, have more ability to make the changes of the reimagining that we're going through right now for law enforcement and police reform. So
absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, that commitment wouldn't be an issue for me. I do have one question in regards to the academy that we have to go for 12 weeks. Just the time commitment, and throughout that 12 weeks, we will be able to get a schedule that runs in correspondence of what you guys are requiring of us. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the time may have been reduced. It was 12. I think it's down to 8. But in any case, it's like a Tuesday night for 8 weeks. It's that one night a week from like maybe 6 to 9 or something. But the schedule's laid out, and you know in advance of what you're gonna have to do. And they do. I mean, COVID's reduced the timing, but they usually do try to do 2 a year. But we'll see. They have a bigger academy space now, so who knows? But that's the way it lays out. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted just to ask for just scheduling purposes, not that it's a problem or it will interfere with the commitment to the Community Police Review Board.
okay.
Thanks for that.
Mr. Ballerin, did you go already? It's okay.
No, not yet. It's
okay.
I know. But along that, I know, Kelly. It's okay. First and foremost, Ms. Davis, I just wanted to, piggyback on what's already been said. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your willingness to put yourself out here and interview for this session. And thank you for all that you do and continue to do for our city. It's truly appreciated, and it hasn't gone unnoticed.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
I just want to put that on the record. Part of what we're looking to do is to make sure we have a diverse board with different viewpoints and different perspectives to get the best out of any decisions that are made out of. What perspective, what viewpoint, what from your background and knowledge do you think you can add to the board?
Well, that's cool. I think first and foremost, it's my observational skills. I also growing up in the city of Albany as a youth, I made decisions and I had to work my way, out of the judicial system. And I did, so I understand some of the struggles that our youth are dealing with, which is a lot of our issues dealing with violence in the city. I understand judicially some of our struggles as far as our court systems and our what's going on with our police. There's a lot of this is a multi-dimensional. It's a good question, and the question can unravel a few different layers. I think most effectively, what I offer is just a understanding of jurisprudence, a understanding of social conduct and self-integrity, and how a community should be operating in those things with its municipalities and municipalities with its community. So I think in reviewing these cases and understanding jurisprudence and understanding the boundaries of that, and then also, I'm a firm believer in ownership, accountability, and responsibility. So, in looking at these things and just making sure that it's being observed and reviewed from a perspective of understanding, experience, no prejudice, no biases. It's just for truth, justice, righteousness, and making the city of Albany and its community and its residents feel comfortable in regards of our judicial system here. And I think that I play a valuable role in being a medium and a bridge to the community that we are birthing now and the changes that is happening with our Albany Police Department. I don't think it's by any coincidence that I have a lot of relationships with the Albany Police Department, with a lot of good people in there, and the relationships that I have with the city. I think it's my responsibility to do the right thing with it and to be that conduit and to serve and to do the best that I can do. And as on the review board with the other members there too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Conti?
No question. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for your interest, but I think you've covered some of the questions that I had, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned relationships with APD or whatever. Can you just speak to some of your interactions with APD, good, bad, or indifferent?
Man, I have to be honest with you.
And that's what we want.
I have to be totally honest with you. I have had a great deal of interactions with Albany Police Department, and whether it was bad, good, or indifferent, me with my seatbelt off, me getting caught with my hand in the cookie jar. I love my police department. I've been able to create a relationship and rapport with, you know, individuals in the police department, and maybe some circumstances that was sticky, but it allowed me to, you know, get past that bridge and show, you know, allow us to find an understanding. So, you know, I don't have nothing bad to say about individuals in the police department. You know, it's just our overall traditional ways of approaching certain things that, you know, we need to change. And I think that comes with having a first and foremost dialogue and an understanding that we're not perfect, and that we understand that, you know, we get into some of these positions and we're just following tradition, and that, you know, we can't fault a person for that. You know, as the police review board, you know, I think, you know, I will, you know, take pride in, you know, doing my best to add to the perspective of the 9 to come up with healthy alternatives, so that, you know, we're not stuck on old paradoxes or just, you know, the rhetoric. You know, we get that. We just want to come up with some healthy alternatives and work towards some parallels that's moving the city forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. And that, my goal wasn't to put you on the spot. It was, I've been asking everyone that question, and
Yeah.
we talk about wanting diversity on the CPRB. There's diversity of thought, diversity of experience. I have my own stories.
I'm
So,
with you.
so that was what that was about.
Nah,
And it's okay to think different, and our experiences make us who we are. Okay, that's everyone on of those 9 members bring stuff to the table because of their past, because of their history, because of their knowledge. So that's what that was about.
Absolutely.
So we'll move on. Mr. Anani, you're up.
Hello, Ms. Davis. Thank you for your interest on serving on CPRB. In light of the developments these past several months, you know, when you think about Dante Ivy, unarmed African American who was tased by Albany Police Department. When you look at Elazar Williams, someone who was accused of having a gun, encountered law enforcement and was running away, was shot in the back. There's been calls by the public to hold Albany Police Department accountable. And even just more recently, Officer Hopt, who just said that African Americans are the worst race that he has to deal with. What can we do to hold law enforcement accountable? What can we as Common Council member enable you or the CPRB so that you can hold Albany Police Department accountable?
I want to start by, you know, I'm actually dealing with a case right now that I'm working as a paralegal with Jameek Johnson, a young man who was tased by Rensselaer Police. You know, so your question, you know, it's a fresh question. You know, it's bubbling my stomach a little bit because, you know, these things are real to me. For the Common Council I'm gonna answer your question, not unorthodox. I'm not gonna answer it verbatim. First thing that I can see from the Common Council is just support. Well, you know, us as a community police review board, you know, when we come up with certain consensus and certain healthy alternatives that we see together as a collectively, that you support, and you guys, you know, stand behind us as far as those initiatives or those necessary changes, and moving forward. That's what I see as far as the Common Council and how you best can support us as a community police review board. And also as far as the, you know, the behavior that we're seeing that's exhibited, you know, those, there's the Psalms prayers that, you know, grant me the serenity, you know, to know the difference, grant me the serenity to change the things, to know the difference between the things that I can change. Also grant me the courage to change what I can and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's like there's certain behavioral changes that's taking place at the ABD that, you know, we don't have control over, but we can create healthy alternatives and, you know, a platform and foundation to where, you know, they can start making those changes, you know, without feeling as if there's a power struggle, as if there's, changes being made outside of their platforms. That's, status is everything in our society. So, we just want to make sure that, in our observations and what we're doing, that we're being transparent, we're making decisions and reviews for change and to turn the leaf. And when it comes to those circumstances, and even though, as a common council, you guys may be privy to certain information on how certain policies already ran. So, just to support us and just to make sure that you're filling in our gaps. And I believe, as a community police review board, you guys know who you're picking. So I'm pretty sure that, the 9 that you pick will be most effective. And as me being a member on there, I would just say that, when we come up with these consensus and these healthy alternatives and these initiatives, just to support us and, and move forward with it. That's how I see the Common Council supporting. And, those issues, those traumatizing issues that we're dealing with as far as the behaviors and the victims that took place, that's unfortunate. But I'm optimistic that as a being a member of the police review board and working in conjunction with Common Council and the APD, is that we can start to change that behavior. We can start to change these narratives, and we can come up with some healthy alternatives that reflect a strong, positive city.
Thank you. My next question is, lately I've been reading about, Martin Luther King's speech, particularly in 1963, when he talked about, the fierce urgency of now. I look at government sometimes when it comes to police reforms or anything meaningful that has to deal with communities of color, there's always seemed like there's a delay, or even any type of policy that would benefit the greater good of our society. There's always delay. The can being kicked down the road, or let's wait till next year, or next committee meeting. What can you do to improve the sense of urgency with policy and also with police reforms? And the next one is, how do you deal with when things you're passionate about are moving too slow?
All right, I'm gonna deal with I'm gonna answer from last to first, if that's okay. When it comes to certain things that I'm passionate about, and it's no mystery that I'm passionate about seeing the changes here in the city of Albany, certain challenges that we may go through, certain hurdles that we're not really getting over, certain things that we may see and understand but not moving towards. One of the things that I do, to be honest with you, just to maintain myself, is I be still. I know how to, I learned how to be still in my life. I learned how to sit down, and, I learned how to do things constructively. Me personally, I like to study, I play chess, so I work out every day. So I have healthy alternatives to that passion, so that, it doesn't turn into frustration. I think a lot of us as passionate activists, community members, sometimes that passion can turn into frustration with not having a healthy alternative, understand the process of things. So me, that's how I channel that. And secondly, you said the sense of urgency of what can be done. Is that what you said? You're on mute.
Muted.
You're muted.
Like, essentially, what can you do to improve the sense of urgency with policy or even with police reforms?
Absolutely. So I think to raise the sense of urgency, I think, is to raise awareness. So I think in order to do that, as far as policy and police reform, I think, communication, properly, communicating, to the community, communicating amongst the Common Council and the APD, really working, in a triangle offense and defense as we need to, in correlation, to make these changes. So I think to raise the sense of urgency, I think, I serve as to raise the sense of urgency, I serve as a conduit to help raise awareness, and throughout that awareness to help bring understanding, to make sure that everyone's on the same page, whether it's the community, Common Council, and the APD, you need someone that is that strong conduit to make sure that, we can balance out, everyone's perspective. Everyone knows that this is a timely fashion. Things, we're not going to hit a home run. Rome is not going to wasn't built in a day. We're not going to make all these sustainable changes, right away. But to make sure while we're all doing this, that everyone's on the same accord. And I think I play a very valuable part in making sure that, we're keeping that balance, and making sure that we're all dealing with our perspective challenges, but working on the same thing together, but not losing sight that we're all in this together. I think I play a valuable part in that.
As someone who deals with the youth, just recently we had a police officer who made essentially racist comments towards African Americans in our city, saying that we're the worst race in society. As someone who deals with our youth, what are some things that you tell the young people that you deal with, particularly about this type of remarks? Or what would you say to our youth, or even to that segment of population that the officer disrespected?
Absolutely. Well, and speaking to the youth, and there's some things, as I used to talk to the youth sometimes, and I used to teach them etiquette and self-etiquette and language. And, one of the things that I would tell the youth, what's the name your mother gave you? Yeah, right. So whatever name calling someone calls you, if it ain't the name your mother gave you, then that's not something you need to be worried about. But on another note, as far as maybe the damages that could have played on our young youth psyche and played on their emotions, we have to teach. You have to teach the children. We have to be real. That the only thing that we can control is ourselves, and just teach the kids how to deal with those emotions from those outside impressions that they may be dealing with. And I think the best way to do that, to be honest with you, Anani, is education. If we can properly educate the children, as far as, culturally, socially, economically, politically, their challenges and some of the things that they're going to be facing. I think when they do face or do see that type of energy, behavior, hatred in society, the education piece will allow it to roll down their back like water on a duck. So, I don't want to play the blame game for people's social dysfunction or maybe mental dysfunctions or whatever. It's just about coming up with a healthy alternative to work past those and to still hold those accountable without, damaging or burning down the whole house.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that concludes our questions, Mr. Davis. Thank you for your time. Did you have any questions for us?
The only question, no, not really. I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to give this interview. I know I was a little late coming into the chat, so I definitely appreciate you guys being patient and still giving me an opportunity to do this interview. The only question, I have a question of curiosity as far as the conclusion or decision of the as far as you guys making, but I'm pretty sure that reflected in the email amongst your prospective reviewees. So other than that, no, not really. Just appreciate you guys. Everyone have a good night, and just looking forward to being on the board, and talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Be
you
safe.
so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Do the same. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, so that concludes. We heard from all the applicants. We want to have a little further discussion. Can we be switched out of?
Someone on the committee should make a executive session.
Motion, executive session, yeah.
Get a
Motion to go
motion.
into executive session to discuss the candidates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, yeah, we're back out of executive session from discussing the applicants of the Community Police Review Board. We've made our selection. Well, we had some very good candidates. We only had one spot, unfortunately. And hopefully down the line, if we could maybe get some of those other applicants involved in other boards or commissions here in the city, we'd like to do that. And with that, Mr. Igo, can I get a motion?
I make the motion that we confirm the appointment of Paul Collins Hackett for be the new member of the Civilian Police Review Board. Community
Can I get a second?
Community Police Review Board.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ho, y'all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Everyone, thank you for your time and energy. This was good. I think we got a good one. And the board will be better for it. So thank you for your time, and I say good night.
Good night. See you in a couple nights.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody except for Alfredo.
Abuso, don't
Good
forget
night,
about
Owusu.
that dog.
Good night. You have a good night, my